to Facebook Live on this important day, National Children's Grief Awareness Day. I am Kelly Hughes, joined by Lynne Hughes, the founder and CEO of Comfort Zone Camp. Lynne, let's talk about this day. I know that you founded Comfort Zone Camp. How important of a day is this?
Well, it is important, Kelly. There's millions of children nationally and throughout the world who have lost a close loved one, and they are grieving, and they're often isolated, and they're not encouraged in their support system of friends, family, parents, teachers, coaches to talk about it. And so it's isolating, and this lets them know that they're not alone and that there's others out there like them, and it encourages them and those in their lives to have those conversations and to talk about it.
And why did you start Comfort Zone Camp 21 years ago?
So my parents died when I was young, my mom when I was 9, my dad when I was 12, and it was lonely, it was isolating. My family didn't talk about it. Everybody kind of went to their corners of the house or their room and dealt with it on their own. And I got the message from friends and family and teachers, and that people were not comfortable talking about it. And if they did find out I had a loss, they'd kind of do this, and their own mortality wheel would spin, and almost like they'd act like they could catch it, and I would end up comforting them. Are you okay? Hearing about my loss. And so you realize people were not comfortable hearing about my loss, and so you stop talking about it, and you kind of put a mask on so that you look like everybody else. So Comfort Zone is really important to me. There weren't resources, nobody talked about it. Many years later, I was aware that there still weren't any resources for grieving children, and you and I met at a camp and loved the camp, and so we really wanted to give children a voice and a place and a community that got it. And that's how Comfort Zone Camp and why Comfort Zone Camp was started.
Well, what's cool is Comfort Zone Camp has helped 21,000 kids.
It's amazing.
And we're going to get to hear from two campers right now. We are excited to have Connor Creech and Jasmine Dabney as we have a conversation on this Children's Grief Awareness Day. Thank you both for joining us on such an important day.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Well, let's jump right into it. My first question to you is, how did you first come to Comfort Zone Camp? Jasmine, we'll go to you first.
So Comfort Zone Camp wasn't something that I knew about beforehand. And I'm pretty sure my mom was referred by a friend after the loss of my father in 2010. So at the time I was 11 years old and didn't really know what camp was, thought it was going to be a lot of crying and just boring stuff and working through emotions that I didn't think I really needed to work through. So that was my first introduction to Comfort Zone.
Connor?
Yeah, so I didn't come to or hear about Comfort Zone until a little bit later. I think it was 2016 or so. I was looking for some volunteer work to do, and my sister had been affiliated with Comfort Zone Camp. And because of the previous loss I had, it seemed like a perfect fit. So I did some research and did the Big Buddy training and everything. And yeah, it's been a blessing.
So let's jump into a little bit of not only why does Comfort Zone matter, but let's get into the more global, why does Childhood Bereavement Day, why is it important that there's a day, and why is it important to create awareness? And of course, we ask you both here because it means something individually to both of you. So Connor, we'll start with you. If you could tell us a little bit about who you lost and just what happened afterwards, and was it okay to talk about, or what kind of messages did you get after your loss?
Yeah, so I'm 27 years old. In 2004, my older brother, Justin Creech, was stabbed to death by a fellow classmate. At the time, I was 10 years old, and I just felt so lost and alone. It was just a huge shock, obviously, to a kid. And so throughout the time, there were the funerals and stuff, and that was more for my parents were able to grieve and all that. And I was experiencing everybody kind of go through the process of a loss, but me as a kid, I didn't really know what to do, and it felt taboo almost to talk about it. I didn't have any friends that had been through similar circumstances by any means. And it was always something that I didn't like bringing up because I didn't want to like suck the happiness out of a conversation by like
Sure.
telling people. So it's something like I always hid. So I think it's extremely important. It wasn't until I got much older, into like adulthood, around 22, that like I started to realize like pain shared is pain lessened. Like being able to talk about this stuff and actively participate in the grieving process, and how important it was.
Yeah, awesome. And I love that pain shared is pain lessened. That's so, so true. Jasmine, the same question for you. Tell us a little bit about who you lost and, you know, what happened afterwards and what messages did you get about, was it encouraged to talk about, or did you feel like it wasn't encouraged to talk about?
So again, I lost my father in 2010, and that was my initial loss that sent me to Comfort Zone. Um, at the time, I was 11 when I had my loss, and I was 12 when I came to camp, because there's that a little bit of I think it's 3 months before you can come to camp after your loss. And so during that time, it was very odd because I was the only kid who had experienced the loss of a parent in my grade. We came from a very small town. So literally the next day after my dad passed away, everybody pretty much knew about it. Again, with being in a small town, there were so many rumors that got started, to the point of where at one point people thought my brother had passed away because he's a junior and my dad is a senior. So it was a lot of controversy around my dad's death. And that's like the main word I come back to, because again, I was the only child. So not a lot of people understood grieving children and how to handle them, how to approach them. I got a lot of the stereotypical I'm sorry's, and a lot of people who just kind of gave me like that 10 foot away pat on the back, because they didn't really want to like deal with my emotion, but they didn't want to feel bad for not saying anything. For a long time, I felt like I couldn't really talk about it because I am the vocal one in my family. My brothers never really talked to begin with. So after our dad passed away, they kind of went into their shells more. And a lot of the times I didn't really want to talk to my mom about it because I didn't want to upset her, because I knew that was a lot that she had to deal with. And then school-wise, a lot of my teachers were pretty insensitive to losing a parent, especially in middle school. That's a very developmental time in a child's life. And I feel like a lot of adults don't know how to differentiate the difference of them losing a parent and a child losing a parent. Not to say that one loss is worse than another, but I feel like a lot of adults tend to think that kids are supposed to bounce back the way that they bounce back from losses, and or the way that adults are perceived to supposedly bounce back from losses. And so it was kind of hard to get them to reason with the fact that I'm still going through all these hormonal changes, and now I have like this like burden that I have to carry that I didn't ask for, type of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes total sense.
So I was going to ask Connor, what was your experience like coming to Comfort Zone Camp, and how did it help?
So the first time was the summer 3-day camp with kids. I was a big buddy. And of course, initially me going into it was like, well, I kind of want to go in to help somebody else, help a child who'd been through something that I'd been through. But like it had really helped me, and it was powerful seeing like these kids have a safe place to share their story. And like it was awesome seeing not awesome, but it was powerful seeing kids articulate the losses and being able to like go through the process and just share a story. Like there are many throughout camp, there are many laughs, there are many good times, but there's also many serious like, oh my God, like moments. And it helps me more than I ever would have guessed it would have helped me. So it was amazing.
Jasmine?
Comfort Zone Camp for me was definitely like a safe haven. When I first got there, I really didn't want to be there. Thought again, like it was going to be a whole bunch of crying and I was going to hate it. And by the end of the weekend, when my mom came to get me, I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay there forever. Like Comfort Zone, and I tell a lot of people this and they laugh, but Comfort Zone has turned into like Disney World for me. Like anytime I get an email from you guys saying that I'm going to be at camp, whether it's a big buddy or any other role, like I'm super excited. Mostly because it's kind of turned into again, like a safe haven. It's one of those places where like I know people understand what I've been through, and it gives me hope to know that no matter what I go through, I'm going to make it through. Just seeing from the campers to the volunteers that you guys have, everybody's so wise, and they're so, again, like Connor said, articulate in what they've been through, and they know how to express those emotions and give you ways to get through those emotions and work through those emotions and stuff. So Comfort Zone has pretty much been pretty much a lifesaver at the end of the day for me.
So I'm going to ask you both, then I'll start with Connor. So what do you think happens if you don't come to Comfort Zone? So for the many kids out there, the millions of kids out there, who haven't been to Comfort Zone or gotten any bereavement resources, if you don't have that place or that person or, the outlet to talk about it, how do you think it affects your grieving process?
So that's actually my story. Is like I talked about. Wasn't affiliated with Comfort Zone Camp. Like I'd lost my brother, and of course my mom put me in counseling. But it was not as personable, and not as personal. Period. I wasn't really comfortable speaking with this licensed professional about the loss of my brother. And I think it isolated me, or I know for a fact it isolated me because it made me kind of feel alone. I didn't know that there were other kids who had been through this process that I was. And like, as I said, like talking about it always seemed taboo. So holding it in. And I also relate to Jasmine's brothers. Like I became introverted. I went back into my shell and wasn't able to express it in a healthy manner. So I think if I had a resource like Comfort Zone Camp during my process and had known about it, I think it would have helped tremendously in my developmental process. Because like she said, we were both at ages where we're really like discovering ourselves. Like I was 10 years old, like I was trying to navigate life while still trying to be a kid, but it kind of like it threw me from being a kid into like something as serious as this. Like it kind of, I don't want to say stole my childhood, but it altered it drastically, and it made me just feel so alone. So I think that would have been a resource to make me feel more connected with other people who have similar stories.
Jasmine, what do you think?
Pretty much going back to what Connor said, the whole therapy thing, I had tried that route also. And I will say, for me, not to discredit like all therapists, I feel like Comfort Zone Camp was definitely the better alternative for me rather than therapy. And I only say that because like in my day-to-day life, I believe that real life experience will always like trump book knowledge. And I feel like a lot of professional therapists that tend to help with grief therapy haven't really ever gone through such a significant loss. And that's not to say all of them haven't, but the one that I had personally had not been through that. And so it was hard for them to understand what I was going through on a personal level. Whereas at camp, pretty much everybody has the heart for it, and they've either been through it or they've been very closely related to somebody who's been through it. So it's like that genuine expression of, I know where you've been. I like can relate to you. Like I've either been there or I've seen somebody who's been there, or I've been doing this long enough to where I know like the signs of how to help you and stuff like that. So I definitely feel like Comfort Zone is pretty much like in a category of its own. And there's no way that anybody, I don't think, is ever going to be able to replicate this or make Comfort Zone outside of the bubble. I feel like it's just something that you have to experience at Comfort Zone. Like it's definitely just its own thing.
Let's talk a little bit about your support group, your family, friends, even teachers at school. Did you have similar paths in terms of how they helped you, or did you have to work on yourself first? Did they understand what you were going through? Connor, we'll start with you.
So I'd say no. It didn't seem like anybody really knew what I was going through. Of course, like I had an older sister, and she had also lost a brother in the same manner. I had parents that lost a child in the same manner, but it wasn't the same process. Like everybody in my family grieved in a different way. Like everybody had their own way of remembering and stuff. And as a kid, like I didn't go to teachers, I didn't go to classmates, I didn't really have anybody. Of course, I could go to like talk to my mom, I could go talk to my sister, but I didn't have somebody that could identify. Like going back to like the thing is like being able to talk to people that have like experience, strength, and hope, and walk through what you're walking through has been unparalleled. Like now that I'm older, I'm in a recovery process. Like I've got people I can lean on, and the whole reason, methodology, or whatever behind it is like being able to go to somebody and lean on somebody that has been where you've been and has gone through what you've gone through, so you can say, hey, if they did it, I can do it. And yeah, like the people in my life at the time, like I really didn't have anybody, honestly.
Jasmine?
I would say my support system was mostly my mom and my middle brother. And this is like, I'm sorry, I don't want to get like emotional, but definitely going through everything. It was pretty tough. Excuse me. My dad's side of the family was pretty tough to deal with at times. And it wasn't all of them. It was just, I guess I've never experienced the loss of a sibling, so I couldn't tell you what they were going through. And that may have been tough on them. But it caused a lot of like disconnect and hatred and things of that nature. And so I tried to lean on my mom and my middle brother as much as possible. But again, my middle brother didn't really talk much about our loss. He kind of stayed to himself and would only talk about it if he really knew that I needed to talk, because he didn't want to leave me like out there to fend for myself, being the youngest sibling and the only girl. And then for my mom, it was kind of like she didn't want me to grow up not knowing how to express my emotions, because nobody ever really wanted to talk to me about it. She was always as open as possible. Even after my mom got remarried, on like very important dates and stuff like that, she would always make sure that she would bring it up. Like she'd be like, yeah, I know it's your dad's birthday. I know you probably have some stuff going on, but if you want to talk, I'm here. She would always extend that like hand to me, because I would never ask for it. So she would definitely always be there to extend that to me if I needed it, just to know that I had somebody in my corner. As far as school, I didn't really ever talk to my teachers about it, because again, they didn't really relate. I didn't really talk to guidance counselors about it, because a lot of the times I just felt like they give you like those basic answers of like trying to fix you. And again, from camp, I've learned that we're not broken. We don't need to be fixed. We've just been given this thing to deal with, and that's all we can do is deal with it and learn different ways to cope with it. It's not something that broke me, so I don't necessarily need like a solution or like a solvent.
So fast forward to today. I know you both are in good places and thriving young adults. And clearly now, you know, you both have gone from a place of not having that support and kind of lonely and not being able to talk about it, to here you're doing something on National Grief Awareness Day, helping others, telling your stories, putting yourself out there. So are you comfortable talking about it to strangers? Are you comfortable talking about it to friends, new acquaintances that you meet? And where would you say you are in your grief journey? Connor, you want to go first?
Yeah, so I had mentioned this prior, but like I'm not scared or necessarily hesitant to mention my loss as much these days. More like I don't want to say gaze the room, read the room, but like I'm willing to talk about it in particular circumstances. I'm willing to tell strangers. I was actually just it's crazy. Yesterday, I'd started playing a video game again, and there's this kid I met online, and he actually randomly brought up the fact that he lost his brother like over Xbox. And I remember being able to like to open up and share with him like about my process and about everything that happened to me. And it's like, it's crazy. Like people you meet throughout your life, like some people have been through the same circumstances, very similar circumstances, and like being able to express it isn't not only is it good for me, but like it can help somebody else. And like being able to look out for people that are going through the same thing as that I went through is powerful. Like back to the pain shared, pain lesson, but like also like it seems like the times I feel most confident and happy with myself is when I'm able to help somebody else and through a process. So yeah.
Jasmine?
I would definitely say me being the talkative person that I am anyways, coming to Comfort Zone has definitely helped me get better with telling my story, to the point of where like most people hear about my loss and they're like, oh my gosh, if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to. And I'm literally like, no, at this point, I'm an open book. As you guys know, and a lot of the other Comfort Zone family, grief is not something that I'm new to. I've lost plenty of people that are very close to me outside of my loss that was my father. So pretty much at this point, it's just kind of become, and I don't want to say like it's become a list, but honestly, like at this point, I could run you the whole story and I wouldn't say be fine with it as if like there's no emotion, but I could like run you the whole story and not completely break down. As before, I could probably not even get through my dad's story. And that's honestly like awesome in my opinion now, because it's helped me realize that that's like my passion, and what I want to do is help other people who have lost loved ones. And so that kind of helped me when I was deciding what I wanted to do in school, which was be a social work major, work with kids who have been through these types of situations, and kids who are in the foster system and kids who don't have that voice yet, who haven't found their voice for themselves. And so pretty much I would just say that it's definitely become a lot easier, and I want to help other people find that, if that makes sense.
Awesome.
We're having an important conversation with Connor Creech and Jasmine Dabney on this Children's Grief Awareness Day. Jasmine, you sort of touched on it, but I want to ask the question again. A number of years have gone by since both of you have lost your loved one. Has it gotten easier? I think that would be a natural question for someone to maybe ask.
Has it gotten easier? So I don't know if easier would be the word. I would say that it's definitely like my journey has developed and matured over time. So, I mean, yeah, I guess easier would be, yeah, I guess it's gotten easier. It's gotten different, I guess, because before I was very emotional about everything. Like literally that little tear up would have been me crying and sobbing this whole time. But I've definitely learned how to manage my emotions a lot better and how to express my story without becoming like this emotional mess. Yeah, so it's gotten better.
Connor?
I would definitely say, yeah, it's gotten easier throughout the years. Back into like going, like as I said, like going into adulthood and kind of learning the grieving process and being able to open up. Every year it gets a little bit easier, it seems. There is hope, which I think would have been great to know as like a young kid, like wondering like, hey, is this ever going to end? Is the pain ever going to go away? Like the pain doesn't necessarily go away. Like you'll still have, like I still have the loss, but like it's gotten easier to cope with, easier to grieve. And it's, yeah, so yeah, it's definitely gotten easier throughout the years.
So I have a question for both of you too, so this day, there's two main audiences that need to know about childhood bereavement. There's the kids going through it themselves who've had the loss, and those who come in contact with them. So that's what we've touched on, the family, the friends, the teachers, the others in their world. So if you could give a message to both of them, what would it be? So we'll start with, so Connor, what do you think that friends or parents or even teachers, what do you wish that they knew to how to support to or talk to or help a grieving child?
Jasmine touched on this somewhat, but I think not being afraid to ask. Like people would dance around, would dance around the subject matter. And it seems like very few people would ask me directly, like, how are you doing? Like, how do you feel without your brother? So on and so forth. And just asking more direct questions instead of like, just like sending like the 10-foot pat on the back is the expression she used. I think if people were more open and direct, it would have helped me definitely be able to learn to talk about it. It was that 10-foot pat on the back that made me kind of hesitant to ever bring up my loss and scared to do it. And like I said, that was me hiding the pain I was feeling. It was me not wanting to push it on to other people. It was me just introverting myself. And I think that made things significantly harder and like dragged on the grief process much longer than it would have been otherwise.
Awesome. Jasmine, what do you think? How do you think that others, in a grieving child's life, parents, teachers, coaches, friends, what do you wish that they knew, and how could they support and talk to a grieving child?
I would definitely say it all comes back to meeting that child where they're at. And that just kind of means like if they're 3 years into their loss and they're not grieving how you think they should grieve, I don't think that there's any set timeline for grief. I don't think that we all grieve the same. And I definitely think that they should be allowed like the privilege to express their grief journey how they want to, as long as they're not harming themselves or others. I think that, again, there is no timeline and we're all different, and that a lot of people force these kids to go back into their normal everyday routines or force them into trying to be like this chipper like kid again. And losing someone that close to you definitely alters you. It makes you different. And again, like Connor said, it doesn't really, I don't want to say steals your childhood, but it throws you into like early adulthood pretty fast. And people trying to force you to act a certain way or present yourself a certain way or think a certain way, it makes it worse because now it's like you don't know who you are to begin with after this loss, and now everybody's telling you who you should be. So I feel like a lot of people just need to let these kids express themselves, and also don't be shy to tell them the truth. Oftentimes I hear with losses is that people sugarcoat things to kids, thinking that they're not ready to know certain things about their loss. And that in the end, like initially you may think it's a good thing to do, but in the end that causes a lot more damage than good from what I've seen, because you never want to lie to your kids. You never want to just feed them false information to make them feel better, because at the time it will make them feel better. But once they realize that those things aren't true, it can cause a lot of distrust or a lot of harm to who they are as a person. So a lot of the times it's better to just be upfront and open, because that initial hurt is easier to make better than hurt later on down the line. So
great advice. And certainly do it in age appropriate terms, but
yes.
So the second part of the question, and Connor, we'll go back to you. We'll let you think about it for a minute, Jasmine. But so if Connor, if you're speaking to the millions of kids out there in the United States and maybe worldwide, because they could be watching this too. We don't know how big our audience is, but give them a message on if you wanted to talk to them and talk to them, reach out to them on what would you like to tell somebody who's grieving today that's out there and needs to know maybe that they're not alone.
I think I'd say just that. Like, I think it's important for them to know they're not alone. Like, there have been other people who've walked where you've walked, and it's okay to feel the pain and just know that, like, it does get better. It really does. But I think most importantly is to know, like, I wish I had known that I wasn't alone. There have been people that have been where I've been, and there have been people that have gone through what I've gone through. And it's okay to talk about it. It is. I think that's another important thing is, like, don't be afraid to talk about it. Find that special someone that you can open up with, and don't be don't feel like it's taboo or that you have to hide it, because like hiding it for as long as I hid it was unhealthy, very, very unhealthy.
Right, so Jasmine, same question for you. If you could talk to the grieving children of America or the world, if you could give a message to them today, the grieving children of today, what would you want to tell them?
I would tell them not to think of themselves as different as they do. It's actually a lot more common than a lot of us think it is to lose a loved one at such an early age. But again, a lot of people make it seem like it's taboo and that it's something that we shouldn't talk about. And pretty much to let them know again that you're not alone. There are plenty of us who have been through it, who are going through it, who are going to go through it. And again, like Connor was saying, it gets easier. Things get better. And just because you have that loss, it doesn't make you any less successful or any less important than anybody else. It's something that we all go through. And honestly, like, I know we make this joke at camp sometimes. It's kind of like being inducted into like this really cool club of like people who have all gone through the same thing. And it's like, you hate to think about it, but like once you're in the club, it's kind of like, well, now you have all these people who understand you and who love you for you and who are willing to help you and stuff. So it may seem tragic at first, and it is tragic. It may seem like very upsetting at first, but things do get easier, and it's not something that you have to go through by yourself.
Well, before we say goodbye, I wanted to give you an opportunity. Maybe there's something on your heart we haven't covered, anything that you want to say on this important conversation on Children's Grief Awareness Day.
I just say to the parents, especially the families of kids who are going through a grieving process, like reach out and get help. I think it's extremely important, and being able to have an open dialogue with the child who might not be able to express or articulate himself or herself in a healthy way. I think that would be the most important.
Jasmine?
I would definitely say that if you, again, like Connor was saying, if you need the help, definitely reach out for yourselves and your kids, like for the parents and stuff. And for the kids, don't be afraid to ask. It doesn't hurt to ask your parents if you feel like you need some sort of assistance and someone to be there for you. Again, I would definitely recommend Comfort Zone Camp. I've been coming to camp for 10 years now, and I've done just about every role from JC to Big Buddy, now Healing Circle Leader, and definitely it's somewhere that you find a home in. And it's pretty much like a lifelong, it's a lifelong home away from home, and it's a lifelong family. You meet so many wonderful people, and it's worth it. It may seem scary at first, but definitely in the end, it is worth it. And I don't know where I would be without it. So definitely look into Comfort Zone Camp and use it as a resource. It's there. It's free. It's for you guys. It's amazing.
Well, in closing, I just want to tell you that every time you tell your story, you heal. And every time you hear somebody else's story, you heal. So we just saw a little piece of both of your healing happen right in front of our eyes, which is a privilege. It's also a privilege to those who get to hear your story, because you're going to help somebody else out there heal, put a piece in their healing by you letting them know they're not alone and validating whatever they're thinking or feeling is okay. So thank you so much for putting your hearts out there and telling your stories. You know, I feel like you are not only a part of the club, but part of my family. I feel like you both are my kids, and I'm so proud of you, and you're amazing, and just love you both.
Love you too. Thank you for having us, definitely.
Thank you, Connor. Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome back, Facebook Live, on this important National Children's Grief Awareness Day. And what an amazing conversation with Connor and Jasmine.
Yeah, they are amazing. Love them so much.
A reminder, make sure you wear blue and tag us at Comfort Zone Camp. And Lynn, what else do we have coming up?
So yeah, we do have some exciting things happening at Comfort Zone Camp that you all are welcome to get involved in and participate in. We have a holiday workshop, Navigating Loss Through the Holidays, for parents and guardians and others in your life needing support with that. That is Saturday, December 5th. Find out more information on our website. Again, for our entire Comfort Zone community, or other people you know who like trivia, I like some holiday trivia.
Yes.
It's holiday trivia, and that is Tuesday, December 8th. We also have some exciting things going on in our company store. We're looking at adding this lovely blue item in support.
Appropriate? Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And other items, if you want to let us know what you're looking for, what you'd like to see under the tree, let us know. Tag us at Comfort Zone Camp and tell us what you'd like to see at the company store, because we're getting ready to order.
Yep, should be ready for the holidays. Well, that's going to do it for us on this important day, Children's Grief Awareness. Thank you so much for joining us on this Facebook Live.
Thank you so much, everybody.